David Martinez stared at the papers in front of him and felt his stomach twist into knots. 15 years of marriage, reduced to signatures on legal documents spread across a white tablecloth in an expensive restaurant. The irony wasn't lost on him. This same restaurant, Giovanni's on 5th Street, was where he'd proposed to Rebecca all those years ago. Now it would be where everything ended. He arrived 10 minutes early, hoping to gather his thoughts before the final meeting. The place looked exactly the same, with its dim lighting, soft piano music, and the smell of garlic and fresh bread filling the air. But everything felt different now. David chose the corner booth Rebecca had requested, the one near the back where they could have privacy. His lawyer, Thomas Chen, sat beside him reviewing documents one last time. Rebecca walked in at exactly noon. She always was punctual. David watched her make her way through the restaurant, her heels clicking on the marble floor. She wore a navy blue dress he'd never seen before, and her hair was styled differently, pulled back in a sleek way that made her look like a stranger. Her lawyer, a tall woman named Patricia Hayes, followed close behind carrying a leather briefcase. The greetings were awkward. A brief nod, forced smiles, the kind of painful politeness strangers use. Rebecca slid into the booth across from David while Patricia sat beside her. Thomas began laying out the papers in organized stacks, explaining what each document represented. David only half listened. His mind kept drifting to memories he didn't want to have right now. He remembered their wedding day, how beautiful Rebecca looked walking down the aisle. He remembered buying their first house together, that little fixer-upper on Maple Street they'd worked on every weekend for 2 years. He remembered the night they talked about having children someday, lying in bed making plans for a future that now would never happen. "David, are you listening?" Thomas's voice pulled him back to the present. "Sorry, yes, I'm listening." David straightened up and tried to focus. Patricia was explaining the settlement terms. Rebecca would keep the house on Riverside Drive, the one they'd bought 5 years ago when David's construction business started doing well. David would keep the business itself, along with most of the debt that came with it. The company had been struggling lately, contracts falling through, money going missing. David had been too distracted by the failing marriage to figure out what went wrong. Rebecca would also get her car, half the savings account, and the furniture. David would keep his truck, his tools, and whatever was left after the lawyers got paid. It wasn't exactly fair, but David was too tired to fight anymore. He just wanted it over. "The division of assets is straightforward," Patricia continued. "Mrs. Martinez has agreed to waive spousal support in exchange for keeping the primary residence. Mr. Martinez accepts responsibility for the outstanding business loans." David glanced at Rebecca. She was looking at her phone, scrolling through something with a slight smile on her face. She wasn't even pretending to pay attention to the lawyers anymore. That hurt more than David wanted to admit. 15 years together, and she couldn't even be present for the ending. "Rebecca," her lawyer said gently, "could you please put your phone away? We need your attention for this." Rebecca looked up, startled. "Oh, sorry. Just checking something." But she didn't put the phone down completely, just turned it face down on the table. The waiter came by to take their order. David wasn't hungry, but Thomas insisted they should eat something. This meeting could take a while. David ordered a sandwich he knew he wouldn't finish. Rebecca ordered a salad. Even now she was watching her figure, always so concerned about appearances. As they waited for the food, Patricia walked through the remaining details. The bank accounts would be split by the end of the week. The title for the house would transfer to Rebecca's name alone. David would need to remove his belongings from the property within 30 days. 30 days? David said. "I've lived there for 5 years. I need more time than that." "That's standard," Patricia replied. "But we can negotiate if needed," Rebecca finally spoke. 30 days is plenty of time, David. It's not like you have that much stuff there anyway. You've been practically living at your office for months." Her tone was sharp, almost cruel. Thomas jumped in before David could respond. "Let's keep this civil, please. We're almost done here." The food arrived. David picked at his sandwich while the lawyers continued reviewing documents. Rebecca ate her salad slowly, occasionally checking her phone when she thought no one was looking. David noticed she kept glancing toward the entrance like she was expecting someone or maybe hoping to leave soon. "Now, if you'll both review page 7, Thomas said, sliding papers toward them. "This outlines the agreed-upon terms regarding the business assets." David scanned the page. It was all there in legal language, His construction company, Martinez and Sons Building, would remain solely his. Never mind that there were no sons and now there never would be. Rebecca was giving up any claim to the business. At first, David thought that was generous of her. But looking at the numbers, he realized why. The company was drowning in debt. She was smart to walk away from it. 6 months ago, David's former business partner, Vincent Torres, had disappeared. One day he was there managing the accounts, the next day he was gone. With him went nearly $80,000 from the company funds. David reported it to the police, but they said without clear evidence of theft, there wasn't much they could do. Vincent could claim the money was his share of profits or salary owed. The missing money nearly destroyed the business. David had to take out personal loans to cover payroll and existing contracts. He borrowed against equipment, maxed out credit cards, even asked his brother for help. The stress of it all, combined with long hours trying to save the company, put strain on his marriage. At least that's what Rebecca said when she asked for the divorce 3 months ago. "I need more from this marriage," she'd told him one night. "You're never home. You're always worried about money. I feel like I'm living with a ghost." David tried to explain that he was fighting to save everything they'd built together, but Rebecca didn't want to hear it. She'd already made up her mind. 2 weeks later, she moved into the guest bedroom. A month after that, she filed the divorce papers. Now here they sat, ending it all in the same restaurant where it began. David picked up his pen. His hand felt heavy. Thomas pointed to the first signature line. "If you're ready, David, just here," and then initialed the next 3 pages. David held the pen over the paper. This was it. Once he signed, there was no going back. 15 years finished. He thought about asking for more time, but what was the point? Another week wouldn't change anything. Another month wouldn't make Rebecca love him again. He was about to put pen to paper when movement caught his eye. A young waitress approached their table, walking quickly. She looked nervous, her hands trembling slightly as she carried a water pitcher. She couldn't have been more than 25. With dark hair pulled back in a ponytail and kind brown eyes that kept darting between David and Rebecca. "Excuse me," she said softly. "Can I refill anyone's water?" "We're fine, thank you," Patricia said dismissively, barely looking up from her papers. But the waitress didn't leave. She stepped closer to David's side of the table, the water pitcher shaking in her hands. She leaned down, pretending to reach for his glass, and whispered so quietly that only David could hear. "You need to see this." "Sir." Before David could react, she slid her phone under his water glass in one smooth motion. It was so quick and subtle that neither Rebecca nor the lawyers noticed. The waitress straightened up, mumbled something about checking on other tables, and hurried away. David stared at his water glass. The edge of a phone peeked out from underneath it, the screen glowing faintly. His heart started pounding. What was going on? He glanced up and saw the waitress watching him from across the restaurant, her expression urgent. "David," Thomas said. "Are you all right? You look pale." "I'm fine," David managed. "Just need to use the restroom." "Give me a minute." He stood up, his legs feeling unsteady. Rebecca sighed with annoyance. "Really, right now?" "I'll be quick." David grabbed the phone as he picked up his water glass, palming it smoothly. He walked toward the back of the restaurant, past the bar, down a hallway to where the restrooms were located. Once inside, he locked himself in a stall and looked at the phone. The screen showed a video paused on what appeared to be someone's living room. No, not just someone's living room. His living room. The one in the house on Riverside Drive. David recognized the cream-colored couch, the coffee table he'd built himself, the painting of a lighthouse that hung over the fireplace. His hands shook as he pressed play. The video quality was decent, probably from a phone or small camera positioned somewhere high up. The angle suggested maybe a bookshelf or mounted on the wall. The timestamp in the corner showed the date was 2 weeks ago, a Thursday evening. Then he saw them. Rebecca walked into frame, followed by a man. David's breath caught in his throat. He knew that man. Vincent Torres, his former business partner, the one who'd disappeared 6 months ago with the company money. They were laughing together, comfortable like old friends. Or more than friends. Vincent's hand rested on Rebecca's lower back as they sat down on the couch together. David felt sick. "Everything's going exactly as planned," Vincent said on the video. His voice was clear. Whoever recorded this had good audio. "How did David react when you asked for the divorce?" Rebecca laughed. It was a cold sound David had never heard from her before. like a kicked puppy. He actually cried and begged me to go to counseling. It was pathetic. Poor David, Vincent said mockingly. Too stupid to see what was right in front of him. He's so trusting, Rebecca replied. Made everything easier. He never questioned anything. David gripped the phone tighter. This couldn't be real. This had to be some kind of sick joke. The timing worked perfectly. Vincent continued. I take the money, disappear, his business struggles, your marriage falls apart. Now you get the house and the divorce, we sell it immediately and we're set. Don't forget the refinance, Rebecca added. We pulled out another $60,000 in equity last month. He still doesn't know about that loan. By the time he finds out, we'll be long gone. Vincent pulled Rebecca closer. You're brilliant, you know that? The way you forged his signature on those papers. Years of practice signing his name on birthday cards, Rebecca said with a smile. Who knew it would come in handy? They kissed. David had to look away for a moment, fighting the urge to throw up. When he looked back at the screen, they were spreading papers across his coffee table. Bank statements, documents with official-looking headers, printed emails. This is everything? Rebecca asked. Everything we need, Vincent confirmed. The divorce finalizes next week, you get the house, we sell it within days to that cash buyer I found, and we're on a plane to Costa Rica. New life, new names, plenty of money. What about David? Won't he figure it out eventually? Vincent shrugged. By then we'll be gone. And honestly, what can he do? Report that his ex-wife sold a house that was legally hers? We'll be careful not to leave a trail. Besides, he'll be too busy trying to save his failing business and dealing with that refinance loan he doesn't know exists. They both laughed. The sound echoed in the bathroom stall where David stood frozen. The video continued for another minute, showing them reviewing their plans in detail. They talked about liquidating assets, transferring money between accounts, timing everything perfectly so David wouldn't discover the truth until they were safely out of the country. Finally, the video ended. David stood there in silence, his mind racing. Rebecca had been planning this for months, maybe longer. She and Vincent had worked together to destroy him, to steal everything he'd built, the missing company money, the struggling business, the divorce. It was all a setup, but who recorded this? And why did that waitress have it? David splashed cold water on his face and tried to calm down. He needed to think clearly. He couldn't go back out there and sign those papers, not now. But he couldn't let Rebecca know that he knew the truth either. Not yet. He needed time to figure out what to do with this information. He slipped the phone into his jacket pocket and headed back to the table. Everyone looked up as he approached. Sorry about that, David said, sitting down. I'm not feeling well. I think something I ate earlier isn't agreeing with me. Thomas looked concerned. Do you need to reschedule? Maybe that's best, David said. He met Rebecca's eyes and saw a flash of anger cross her face before she smoothed it away. Are you serious right now? She said. We've all cleared our schedules for this. The lawyers are here. Everything's ready. I understand, but I really don't feel well. Can we meet again this afternoon? At your office, Thomas? Give me a few hours to feel better. Patricia and Thomas exchanged looks. Finally, Thomas nodded. That should work. Shall we say 3 o'clock at my office? Perfect, David said, standing up. I apologize for the inconvenience. He left money on the table for the food and walked out quickly before Rebecca could protest further. As he passed through the restaurant, he searched for the young waitress. He spotted her near the kitchen, watching him with anxious eyes. David walked over to her. I need to talk to you. Outside in 5 minutes? She nodded quickly. The parking lot by the back entrance. David went to his truck and waited. His mind was spinning with everything he'd just learned. Rebecca's betrayal, Vincent's theft, the forged documents, the hidden refinance. They'd planned everything so carefully and he'd been completely blind to it all. 5 minutes later, the waitress appeared. She looked scared but determined. Who are you? David asked. And how did you get that video? My name is Sofia Torres, she said quietly. Vincent is my older brother. David stared at Sofia, trying to process what she'd just said. Vincent Torres was her brother. The same Vincent who'd stolen from his company and was now plotting with Rebecca to take everything else he had. Your brother, David repeated slowly. Vincent is your brother. Sofia nodded, wrapping her arms around herself even though it wasn't cold. They stood in the back corner of the restaurant's parking lot, away from the main entrance where someone might see them. A delivery truck rumbled past on the street, and Sofia waited until it passed before speaking. I know what he did to you, she said quietly. I know about the money he took, and I know about his plan with your wife. I'm so sorry. David leaned against his truck, feeling like the ground was shifting under his feet. How long have you known? About 6 months, right after Vincent disappeared. Sophia looked down at her hands. He came to my apartment one night, all excited, talking about this big score he'd pulled off. He was drinking and bragging about how he'd outsmarted his business partner. That was you, though he didn't use your name at first. He showed me all this cash and said he was about to get even more. And you didn't go to the police? Sophia's eyes filled with tears. He's my brother. I know that sounds like a terrible excuse, but he's the only family I have left. Our parents died 4 years ago in a car accident. It's just been him and me since then. I thought maybe I could talk him out of whatever else he was planning. I thought I could fix it somehow. David wanted to be angry at her. She'd known for 6 months and said nothing while his life fell apart. But looking at her face, seeing the genuine pain there, he couldn't quite manage it. She was young, probably only 24 or 25, and she was here now trying to make things right. Tell me everything, David said. From the beginning. Sophia took a shaky breath. After that first night, Vincent started showing up at my place more often. He was always paranoid, looking over his shoulder, convinced someone was following him, but he also couldn't stop talking about his plans. He kept saying how brilliant it all was, how he was going to end up rich and you were going to end up with nothing. When did you find out about Rebecca? About a month after he disappeared from your company. He brought her to my apartment one night. They didn't know I was home. I was supposed to be at work, but my shift got canceled. I heard them come in, heard them talking in the living room. I stayed quiet in my bedroom and listened. Sophia pulled out her own phone and pulled up a notes app. I started writing down everything after that. Dates, times, things they said. I knew it was wrong what they were doing, but I didn't know how to stop it without turning in my own brother. David felt a surge of hope. What did you write down? Everything. Vincent talked about how he'd been skimming money from your business for almost a year before he took the big amount and left. He said you were too trusting, too busy with work to notice the small amounts going missing. Then when he took the $80,000 and disappeared, he knew it would put you in a financial crisis. That was the plan all along? David felt sick. To destroy my business? Not at first, Sophia said. At first he just wanted money. But then he met Rebecca and things changed. I don't know exactly when they started their relationship, but by the time he brought her to my apartment, they'd been together for a while. She's the one who suggested using the business problems to push for a divorce. David's hands clenched into fists. She planned this. They both did. Vincent said Rebecca was smarter than he'd given her credit for. She figured out that if your business was struggling and your marriage fell apart at the same time, you'd be too overwhelmed to think clearly. You'd just want everything over with as fast as possible. The house, David said, understanding flooding through him. That's what they're really after, Sophia nodded. Rebecca gets the house in the divorce, then they sell it immediately. Vincent found some cash buyer who won't ask too many questions. They're planning to split the money and leave the country. Costa Rica, I think. Vincent's been learning Spanish with some app on his phone. David thought about the house on Riverside Drive. He and Rebecca had bought it 5 years ago for $320,000. They'd put $60,000 down and gotten a mortgage for the rest. The market had been good since then. The house was probably worth close to $450,000 now. If they'd paid down the mortgage over 5 years, there'd be significant equity. The refinance, David said suddenly. On the video they mentioned a refinance. Sophia's expression turned grim. That's the worst part. Rebecca forged your signature and took out a home equity loan 2 months ago, $60,000. She and Vincent split it. You're responsible for paying it back, but you don't even know it exists yet. How did she get away with that? Don't lenders verify these things? Vincent has a friend who works at the bank, someone who was willing to cut corners for the right price. They rushed the paperwork through and nobody checked too carefully. Sophia scrolled through her notes. I have the bank name, the loan number, everything. I've been collecting evidence, David looked at her. Why? If you weren't going to turn him in, why collect evidence? Because I kept hoping I'd find the courage to do the right thing. Every time Vincent came over, every time I heard him and Rebecca planning, I told myself this was it. I'd go to the police tomorrow. But then I'd think about him going to prison, about losing my only family, and I'd chicken out. Fresh tears rolled down her cheeks. I'm such a coward. You're here now, David said. You showed me that video. That took courage. I had to do something. When I saw you walk into the restaurant today with those papers, I knew this was my last chance. If you signed those documents, Rebecca would get the house legally. They'd sell it and be gone before you even realized what happened. I couldn't let that happen to you. David pulled out the phone Sophia had given him earlier. This video, how did you get it? I put a camera in your house, Sophia admitted, looking ashamed. 3 months ago, Vincent had a key made before he left your company, and he gave it to me. He wanted me to go check on something at your place while you and Rebecca were both out. I didn't want to, but he was my brother and he pushed until I agreed. What were you supposed to check on? Some papers he'd hidden in the garage. But while I was there, I looked around your house and I saw how normal everything was. Family photos, books on the shelves, your life together. It made everything real in a way it hadn't been before. Vincent and Rebecca were planning to destroy a real person's life, not just some abstract business partner. Sophia wiped her eyes. I had this small camera, one of those nanny cam things. I bought it thinking maybe I could record Vincent confessing, give it to the police anonymously or something. But I'd been too scared to use it on him. So I hid it in your house instead. I put it on top of a bookshelf in the living room, angled down. I thought maybe I'd catch them meeting there, planning things. Then I'd have proof, and you did. Better than I expected. They met at your house multiple times over the next few weeks. They felt safe there, I guess. Thought you were at work and would never know. The camera recorded everything. All their plans, all the details. I have hours of footage. David's mind was racing. This was evidence. Real, solid evidence of fraud, conspiracy, forgery. This could stop them. But he needed to be smart about how he used it. Sophia, I need you to send me everything. All the videos, all your notes, everything you have. I can do that. But David, there's something else you need to know. She hesitated, biting her lip. What? Vincent is still in town. He didn't disappear completely. He's been living in an apartment on the east side under a fake name. He and Rebecca meet up there a couple times a week. He's planning to leave the country soon, but not until after the divorce is finalized and the house sells. Do you have the address? Sophia nodded and showed him on her phone. David took a picture of the screen with his own phone. An idea was forming in his mind. A risky idea, but it might work. What are you going to do? Sophia asked nervously. I don't know yet, but I'm not signing those papers this afternoon, that's for sure. I need time to figure this out properly. David looked at her. Are you willing to testify? If this goes to court, if I press charges, will you stand up and tell the truth? Sophia was quiet for a long moment. David could see the struggle on her face, loyalty to her brother warring with her conscience. Finally, she nodded. Yes, I'll testify. Vincent needs to face consequences for what he's done. And honestly, maybe prison will be better for him than running away to another country with stolen money. Maybe he needs to hit rock bottom before he can become a better person. What about you? Won't you get in trouble for not reporting this sooner? Probably. But I can live with that. I can't live with staying silent anymore. Sophia looked determined now, her tears dried. What do you need me to do? David thought for a moment. First, send me all those videos and notes. Every single thing you have. Then I need you to write down a detailed statement of everything you know. When things started, what you heard, what you saw. Dates, times, as specific as possible. Okay, I can do that tonight. Don't tell Vincent you talked to me. Don't tell anyone. Act completely normal. Can you do that? I think so. He's supposed to call me tomorrow. I'll just pretend everything's fine. David pulled out his wallet and handed Sophia a business card. This has my cell phone number on it. Text me when you've sent the files. If anything changes, if Vincent suspects something, you call me immediately. Day or night doesn't matter. Sophia took the card with shaking hands. I'm really sorry about all of this. You seem like a good person. You didn't deserve what they did to you. Thank you for telling me. I know it wasn't easy. David checked his watch. It was almost 1 o'clock. He had 2 hours before he was supposed to meet the lawyers at Thomas's office. 2 hours to figure out what to do next. I should get back inside, Sophia said. My manager will wonder where I went. One more thing. That camera in my house. Is it still there? As far as I know, yes. Unless Rebecca found it, but I hid it pretty well. It's on top of the tall bookshelf in your living room, the one on the left side of the fireplace. It's in a black case that looks like a book titled Home Repair Basics. I thought that was ironic. Despite everything, David almost smiled. That is ironic. They exchanged phone numbers and Sophia hurried back toward the restaurant. David watched her go, then climbed into his truck. He sat there for several minutes, just breathing, trying to calm his racing thoughts. His wife had betrayed him. His business partner had robbed him. Together, they'd plotted to take everything he had left. For months, David had blamed himself for the failing marriage, thinking he wasn't present enough, wasn't attentive enough. But it had all been a lie. Rebecca never wanted to fix things. She wanted to destroy him and take everything. The anger came then, hot and fierce. David gripped the steering wheel until his knuckles turned white. How could she do this? 15 years together. He'd loved her, trusted her completely. And Vincent, the man he'd gone into business with, the man he'd considered a friend. They'd both looked him in the eye and lied over and over. But anger wouldn't help him now. He needed to think clearly. He needed a plan. David pulled out his phone and called his lawyer. Thomas answered on the second ring. David, are you feeling better? Actually, Thomas, I need to cancel our meeting this afternoon. Something's come up. Cancel? David, Rebecca's attorney is not going to be happy about this. We've already rescheduled once. I understand, but I need more time. Tell them I'm sick. Food poisoning. Whatever you need to say. I'm not signing anything today. Thomas was silent for a moment. What's going on? You were ready to sign this morning. I can't explain right now, but I need you to trust me. Don't let those papers get signed without me there. And I need a recommendation for a different kind of lawyer. What kind? Criminal law. Someone who handles fraud cases, conspiracy, forgery. The best one you know. Another pause. David, what happened? I'll explain everything soon. But right now I need that referral. Thomas must have heard something in David's voice because he didn't push. All right. I know someone. Angela Rodriguez. She's excellent, tough as nails. I'll text you her number. Thank you. David, be careful. Whatever you're dealing with, be smart about it. I will. David hung up and sat in his truck waiting. His phone buzzed a minute later with Angela Rodriguez's contact information. Then another text came through from an unknown number. It was Sophia. This is Sophia, starting to send files now. First video attached. David opened the attachment. It was a different video than the one he'd watched in the restaurant bathroom. This one showed Vincent and Rebecca in what looked like an apartment, probably Vincent's place on the east side. They were sitting at a kitchen table counting cash. Stacks and stacks of $100 bills. $60,000 from the refinance, Rebecca said on the video. Split it right down the middle. 30 for you, 30 for me. Don't spend it all in one place, Vincent joked. We need to keep a low profile until after everything's finalized. I know. But it's hard not to celebrate. We're so close now. David watched them dividing the stolen money. His money. Money taken using his forged signature on loan documents. His phone buzzed again. Another video. Then another. Sophia was sending everything. Over the next 30 minutes, David sat in his truck reviewing evidence. There were videos of Vincent and Rebecca discussing their plans in detail. There were videos of them with the forged documents. There were recordings of phone calls where Vincent talked to his bank contact about pushing the refinance through quickly. Sophia had also sent her detailed notes. Page after page of dates, times, conversations. She'd been meticulous, documenting everything like a detective building a case. It was more evidence than David could have hoped for. His phone rang. It was a number he didn't recognize. David answered cautiously. Is this David Martinez? A woman's voice, professional and direct. Yes. This is Angela Rodriguez. Thomas Chen just called me about you. He said you might need my help with a criminal matter. I do. How soon can we meet? I have time right now if you can come to my office. Thomas said it was urgent. David started his truck. I'm on my way. And Angela, you're going to want to clear your afternoon. This is going to take a while to explain. I'll put on a fresh pot of coffee. David pulled out of the parking lot, his hands steady on the wheel now. The shock was wearing off, replaced by determination. Rebecca and Vincent thought they were so clever. They thought they'd planned everything perfectly. But they'd made one critical mistake. They'd underestimated Sophia's conscience. And they'd underestimated David's will to fight back. As he drove toward Angela's office, David's phone buzzed one more time. A text from Rebecca. Where are you? Thomas says you canceled. We need to finish this today. David stared at the message for a moment before typing back. Sorry, feeling worse. We'll reschedule soon. He could almost see Rebecca's frustration through the phone. She was probably panicking right now, worried that her perfect plan was starting to unravel. Good. Let her worry. Let her wonder what was happening. because the tables were about to turn and Rebecca had no idea what was coming. Angela Rodriguez's office was on the third floor of a modern building downtown. David found parking on the street and took the elevator up, carrying his phone with all of Sophia's evidence carefully saved. His heart was pounding, but it was different from the sick feeling he'd had at the restaurant. This was adrenaline mixed with purpose. He was done being a victim. The reception area was simple but professional. A young man at the front desk looked up and smiled. "Mr. Martinez? Angela's expecting you. Go right on back. Last door on the left." David walked down a short hallway and found Angela's office. She stood up from behind her desk when he entered. She was probably in her mid-40s with shoulder-length black hair streaked with gray and sharp eyes that seemed to assess everything instantly. She wore a navy blazer and had the kind of presence that made David immediately feel like he was in capable hands. "David Martinez," she said, shaking his hand firmly. "Thomas speaks highly of you. Please sit down." David sat in one of the leather chairs across from her desk. Angela poured 2 cups of coffee from a pot on the side table and handed him one, before settling into her own chair. "Thomas said you need help with a criminal matter involving fraud. Why don't you start from the beginning and tell me everything?" So David did. He started with Vincent Torres joining his construction business 4 years ago. How Vincent had seemed like the perfect partner, handling all the financial side while David focused on the actual construction work. He talked about how the business had been doing well until about a year ago, when little things started going wrong. Small amounts of money missing, contracts falling through at the last minute, suppliers suddenly demanding payment up front. Then he described how Vincent disappeared 6 months ago, taking $80,000 with him. How the police said there wasn't enough evidence to prove theft. How David had to take out loans and max out credit cards just to keep the company alive. "That's when my marriage started falling apart," David said. "Or at least that's what I thought was happening. My wife Rebecca said I was never home, always worried about money. She asked for a divorce 3 months ago. I thought it was because I wasn't being a good enough husband." Angela listened without interrupting, taking notes occasionally. Her expression remained neutral, professional. David pulled out his phone. "This morning I was at a restaurant about to sign the final divorce papers. And then a waitress I'd never met before slipped me her phone. On it was a video of my wife and Vincent together in my house planning the whole thing. It was all a setup from the beginning." He showed Angela the first video, the one he'd watched in the restaurant bathroom. She watched it carefully, her eyes narrowing as Rebecca and Vincent discussed their scheme. When it finished, she looked up at David. "Tell me about this waitress." "Her name is Sofia Torres. She's Vincent's younger sister. She's been recording them for months, collecting evidence. She gave me everything this morning." David scrolled through his phone. Videos, notes, dates, times. She documented the whole conspiracy. Angela held out her hand. "May I?" David handed over his phone. Angela spent the next 20 minutes going through everything Sofia had sent. She watched multiple videos, read through the notes, her expression growing more serious with each piece of evidence. Finally, she set the phone down and leaned back in her chair. "This is substantial," she said. "Very substantial. You have them on video discussing fraud, conspiracy, forgery of your signature on loan documents. If even half of this holds up in court, they're looking at serious prison time. What do we do? First, we need to get law enforcement involved immediately. This isn't just a civil matter anymore. Your wife and her accomplice committed multiple felonies. We're talking about bank fraud, identity theft, conspiracy to commit fraud, possibly money laundering depending on how they moved the funds." David felt a weight lift off his chest. Someone believed him. Someone could help. "But," Angela continued, "we need to be very strategic about how we proceed. Right now they don't know you have this evidence. That's an advantage we don't want to lose too quickly." "What do you mean?" Angela stood up and walked to her window, looking out at the city below. "If we go to the police right now with what you have, they'll investigate. But investigations take time. Vincent might get spooked and run. Rebecca might destroy evidence. We need to move fast and smart." She turned back to David. "The divorce papers. When are you scheduled to sign them?" "My lawyer postponed today's meeting. Rebecca's pushing to reschedule as soon as possible. Probably tomorrow or the next day." "Good. That gives us a small window." Angela returned to her desk and pulled out a legal pad. "Here's what I'm thinking. We bring in the police today, but we ask them to move quickly. We show them the evidence, get them to understand the urgency, then we set up the divorce signing as a controlled situation. A controlled situation? You show up to sign the papers with your lawyer just like you're supposed to. But the police are there too, waiting. When Rebecca shows up thinking she's about to get the house and complete her plan, that's when they arrest her. We do the same thing simultaneously with Vincent at his apartment. David felt his pulse quicken. You think that will work? If the evidence is as solid as it appears, yes, but we need a few things to fall into place. Angela started writing on her legal pad. First, we need the sister Sophia, willing to give an official statement to the police. Second, we need to verify some of this evidence independently. The forged loan documents, for example. Can you contact your bank and get copies? I didn't even know the loan existed until this morning. That's fine. Actually, that's good. It shows you had no knowledge of it. We'll subpoena the bank records as part of the criminal investigation. Angela kept writing. We also need to bring in a forensic accountant to trace the money. Where it came from, where it went, how it was spent. David thought about the video of Rebecca and Vincent counting cash at the kitchen table. Sophia has a video of them dividing the money from the refinance. $60,000 split right down the middle. Even better. That shows consciousness of guilt. They knew what they were doing was wrong. Angela looked up at him. David, I need to ask you something important. Are you prepared for what comes next? This isn't going to be clean or easy. Your wife is going to be arrested. There will be a trial, probably media attention. Your personal life is going to become very public. David didn't hesitate. She stole from me. She lied to me for months, maybe longer. She forged my signature and planned to leave the country with my money. Yes, I'm prepared. Angela nodded approvingly. All right then. Let's get to work. She picked up her phone and made a call. Detective Frank Nguyen, please. This is Angela Rodriguez. A pause. Frank, it's Angela. I have a client in my office with evidence of a major fraud case. Bank fraud, forgery, conspiracy. I need you to come take a look at this as soon as possible. Trust me, you'll want to see this. Another pause. Great. We'll be here. She hung up and looked at David. Detective Nguyen is one of the best financial crimes investigators in the city. He'll be here in 30 minutes. While we wait, I need you to write down everything you remember. Every conversation with Vincent about the business. Every time Rebecca mentioned the divorce. Details matter. David spent the next half hour writing. His hand cramped as he filled page after page with information. The dates when money first went missing from the company accounts. The day Vincent disappeared. The night Rebecca asked for a divorce. The lawyer meetings. Every detail he could remember. Detective Nguyen arrived exactly 30 minutes later. He was a thin man in his 50s with gray hair and tired eyes that looked like they'd seen every kind of fraud imaginable. Angela introduced them and then showed him the videos on David's phone. The detective watched in silence, his expression never changing. But David noticed he sat up straighter as the videos went on, paying closer attention. When Angela showed him Sophia's detailed notes, Detective Nguyen let out a low whistle. This is good stuff, he said. Really good. How'd you get it? David explained about Sophia, about how she'd been documenting her brother's crimes for months. Detective Nguyen made notes as he listened. We'll need to talk to her, get an official statement. But based on what I'm seeing here, you've got enough for multiple arrest warrants. He looked at Angela. You thinking what I'm thinking? Simultaneous arrests at the divorce signing? Exactly. Catch them both when they're feeling confident, when they think they've won. People make mistakes when they're overconfident. They might say something incriminating. Detective Nguyen turned to David. How's your acting, Mr. Martinez? My acting? You're going to have to pretend like nothing's wrong. Show up to sign those papers, act like you're defeated, like you just want it all to be over. Can you do that? David thought about Rebecca's face this morning at the restaurant, how she'd barely looked at him, how she'd been checking her phone and glancing at the entrance. She'd been so sure of herself, so confident that her plan was working perfectly. Yeah, David said, I can do that. Good. Detective Nguyen stood up. Give me the rest of today and tomorrow morning to prepare. I need to verify some of this evidence, get the warrants lined up, coordinate with a team. Angela, can you work with David's divorce attorney to set up the signing? Already on it, Angela said. Mr. Martinez, I need you to go home and act completely normal. If Rebecca calls, answer. If she texts, respond. Don't let her suspect anything has changed. As far as she knows, you're just sick and need an extra day to recover. What about Sophia? David asked. She's scared Vincent might figure out she talked to me. I'll contact her tonight, get her statement. We'll make sure she's protected. Detective Nguyen handed David a card. This has my direct number. If anything changes, if Vincent or Rebecca do anything unexpected, you call me immediately. After the detective left, Angela walked David through what would happen over the next 2 days. She'd coordinate with Thomas to reschedule the signing for tomorrow afternoon at Thomas's office. The police would be there, hidden, waiting. When Rebecca arrived, they'd let her sit down, maybe even let her think David was about to sign. Then they'd make the arrest. What about the house? David asked. The refinance loan? That's going to be complicated, Angela admitted. Technically, the loan exists and you're responsible for it. But because your signature was forged, we can fight it. It'll take time, probably months, but we can get it resolved. The bank will likely write off the loan once they realize their employee helped facilitate fraud. And my business? The $80,000 Vincent stole? Harder to recover, but not impossible. If Vincent has any assets left, they'll be seized as part of the criminal proceedings. You'll be entitled to restitution as a victim of the crime. It might not be the full amount, but you'll get something back. David felt tears prick his eyes. For the first time in months, he felt like maybe things would be okay. Not today, not tomorrow, but eventually. Thank you, he said to Angela. I don't know what I would have done if Sophia hadn't shown me that video. Thanks, Sophia, Angela said. She's the real hero in this story. It took a lot of courage to turn in her own brother. David left Angela's office as the sun was starting to set. He sat in his truck for a few minutes, just breathing. His phone buzzed. A text from Rebecca. Thomas says we can meet tomorrow at 2 p.m. Please don't cancel again. I really need this to be finalized. David stared at the message. She had no idea. No clue that her entire plan was about to explode in her face. He typed back carefully. Okay, tomorrow at 2, I'll be there. Thank you. See you then. David drove home slowly, his mind spinning with everything that had happened today. This morning he'd woken up thinking his life was over. By afternoon he'd discovered his wife's betrayal. Now, as evening fell, he had a plan to fight back. When he got home, he looked at the house on Riverside Drive with different eyes. This place that had been his home for 5 years. He and Rebecca had picked it out together, made offers together, moved in together. They'd painted the walls and planted flowers in the garden. They'd hosted friends for dinner and spent quiet weekends working on projects, but it had all been a lie. Or maybe not all of it. Maybe the first few years were real. But somewhere along the way, Rebecca had changed. Or maybe she'd always been this person, and David had just been too trusting to see it. He went inside and walked straight to the living room. There was the tall bookshelf on the left side of the fireplace, just like Sophia had described. David pulled over a chair and climbed up to look at the top shelf. Behind several dusty books, he found it. A black case that looked like a book titled Home Repair Basics. He pulled it down carefully. Inside was a small camera, no bigger than a matchbox. The red light was off, probably out of battery after months of recording. David held it in his hand, this tiny device that had captured the truth and saved him from disaster. His phone rang. It was Sophia. David, did you meet with the lawyer? I did, and the police. Detective Nguyen is going to call you tonight to get your statement. I know. He already called. I'm meeting him at the station in an hour. Her voice shook slightly. I'm really doing this. I'm really turning in my brother. You're doing the right thing, Sophia. I keep telling myself that. It doesn't make it easier, I know, but for what it's worth, you saved my life today. If you hadn't shown me that video, I would have signed those papers. I would have lost everything and never known why. Sophia was quiet for a moment. What happens tomorrow? They're going to arrest them. At the divorce signing. Detective Nguyen said it'll be simultaneous. They'll get Vincent at his apartment at the same time. Vincent's going to hate me. Probably. But maybe someday he'll understand that you did this because you love him, because you want him to face what he's done and have a chance to become better. Maybe. She didn't sound convinced. I should go. I need to get ready to meet the detective. Sophia? Thank you for everything. You're welcome, David. Good luck tomorrow. After she hung up, David sat on his couch in the quiet house. Tomorrow at 2 o'clock, everything would change. Rebecca would walk into that office expecting to finalize her victory. Instead, she'd be arrested for fraud, conspiracy, forgery, and theft. David knew he should feel triumphant, victorious. But mostly he just felt tired and sad. 15 years of marriage ending not just in divorce but in handcuffs and criminal charges. He'd loved Rebecca once, truly loved her. Now she'd be going to prison. His phone buzzed one more time. A text from Thomas. Angela filled me in. I can't believe it. Are you okay? David typed back slowly. I will be. See you tomorrow at 2. He set his phone down and looked around the living room. This time tomorrow, the police would have been here. Rebecca and Vincent would be in custody. The truth would be out. David walked to the bookshelf and put the camera back where Sophia had hidden it. Evidence. It would all be evidence now. Every video, every recording, every moment Sophia had captured. The truth had been hiding here all along on top of his bookshelf waiting to be discovered. Tomorrow couldn't come fast enough. David barely slept that night. He kept checking his phone, half expecting Rebecca to cancel or Vincent to suddenly flee the country. But morning came with no surprises. Just a text from Detective Nguyen at 7 in the morning. Everything is in place. Warrants signed. Team briefed. See you at 2 p.m. Act natural, act natural. David repeated those words to himself as he showered and got dressed. He had to pretend like his world was ending, like he was defeated and broken. It shouldn't be hard. Yesterday morning, that's exactly how he'd felt. He put on the same clothes he'd worn to the restaurant, the blue button-down shirt and khakis that made him look tired and rumpled. He hadn't shaved, which added to the effect. In the mirror, he looked like a man who'd given up. Perfect. At noon, Angela called. How are you holding up? Nervous, David admitted. What if something goes wrong? Nothing will go wrong. Detective Nguyen is excellent at his job. The team knows exactly what to do. You just need to walk in there, sit down, and wait. We'll handle the rest. Where will you be? In the conference room next door with the detective and 2 uniformed officers. Thomas knows we're there. Rebecca and her lawyer won't suspect anything. We've done this before, David. Trust the process. After Angela hung up, David forced himself to eat lunch even though his stomach was in knots. He kept thinking about Rebecca, about how she'd look when the police walked in. Would she be shocked, angry? Would she try to run? At 1:30, David drove to Thomas's office downtown. His hands were sweaty on the steering wheel. He parked in the garage and took the elevator up to the 5th floor, his heart pounding with every floor that passed. Thomas was waiting for him in the lobby. His lawyer looked calm, but there was tension around his eyes. David, come on back. We're in conference room A today. They walked down a hallway lined with offices. David noticed an unmarked door near the conference room. That must be where Angela and the police were waiting. Thomas caught his eye and gave the smallest nod. Yes, they were there. Conference room A was large, with a long table and chairs for 8 people. Floor-to-ceiling windows looked out over the city. Thomas had papers spread out on the table, the same divorce documents from yesterday. Everything looked normal, ordinary, like this was just another business meeting. Rebecca and Patricia should be here any minute, Thomas said quietly. Remember what we discussed? You're tired, defeated. You just want this over with. Can you do that? David nodded.